Happy New Year to you all. For a lot of you out there, it's a new year, a new you. You got your resolutions going. You're ready to start something new. You rather get your diets right, whether you're trying to just change things on just your whole attitude and demeanor. You want to get right with your budget. We all got resolutions and things that we are coming into the new year looking to change. And not only are we starting a new year, we're starting a new decade. And I am so happy to usher in a new year, a new decade with the neXup podcast, where we talk tech. That is our main talk, consumer tech, especially in the smartphone landscape. And obviously, I'm bringing back some talk about sports after the ending credit or ending music, where we'll talk about some sports. But guys, I am excited to be back. Another year, another week. And there's so much to talk about. There's so much that went on. Closing out 2019, there was a lot of news that kind of broke. And I was hesitant to even talk about it because, one of the things I said in my last couple podcasts is, look, I know that there were some leaks that got out there, but I wanted to hold off because, it was the holiday season and a lot of people, they spend that Christmas period picking up items, the new iPhone, the new Galaxy. It's like, let's let these guys enjoy it before we decide to talk about the new leaks and all that stuff. But hey, it's 2020, new year, and I'm ready to get to talking about the new leaks. And there's so much to get into, guys. And look, thank you guys for joining me. And just to give you an update of what this is, just in case this is the first time you tuned in, you like, all right, man, what is this show? What are you talking about? What are you spilling on about? I mean, you get me up to speed what you're doing. So this is the neXup podcast. I am your host, PC747. I've been a fan of tech, particularly smartphones, for over a decade because of the Motorola Droid. I picked one up, had some issues with it, and thanks to the rooting community, I got deep into it and started just falling in love with Android and tech, and everything evolved in it. I started helping people out as part of the tech support group over at Droid Forums, and then it went from there to writing articles talking about everything coming out as far as the newest phones, the newest ROM, whatever it was. I started writing articles about it, and that spurred my basic passion for this industry. And now I decided to start my own website, my own podcast, where I can talk about that same tech that I've been using for over a decade. Basically, I enjoy using it. And not only do I enjoy using it, I enjoy helping people who have issues with it, whether it be people at work, friends, coworkers, anyone. If I see someone have problems, I'll try to do my best to provide support. And I've been one of those people that at work or in my landscape, people will basically come to when they have issues with phones or anything technology, because again, this is my area of passion and I love talking about it. So that's what this podcast is basically about, me being able to use this platform to just share my passion for the tech. And that's what it boils down to, me having that time to do such a thing. And this week, man, there's so much to get going. You got CES that's going to be coming out next week. There's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about there. And we got a lot of stuff to really kind of get caught up on. So look, I'm not going to hesitate any longer to get started out. And what better way to kick off the year with, well, let's talk about some Galaxy stuff. Because it looks like, first of all, I had everything panned out to start talking about the possibility of the new Galaxy S11. And I am going to talk about that because that is something that is important. But man, as I was getting the show together, we had something that just broke. And Samsung is going to be putting out the Samsung Galaxy S10 Lite and the Note 10 Lite. And before I really get into that, I want to go ahead and talk about the Galaxy S11 first. And the reason why, because it looks like what Samsung may be looking to do with the Galaxy 11, one, they may be rebranding it and calling it the Samsung 20. And the fact that we in 2020, it may be a good year to kind of reach branding and call it that. Whether or not that ended up being the case, we would have to see. But there have been some publications kind of saying that could very well be the case. The thing that kind of excites me, though, about the phone is that we may see 5 cameras in this thing. And my question is kind of going to be what they're going to use those cameras for. 5 rear cameras. My guess would be maybe they'll throw a telephoto back there, a wide, ultra wide, depth sensing, and this just stand a quick shooter. As far as other things that's kind of been leaked out there, it's going to have 120 refresh rate. Now, why is that really a big thing? Since these gaming phones came out there, we started seeing these refresh rates being put on the phones, and it really helped with the overall smoothness of the display and everything you use your phone for it. We saw OnePlus kind of experiment with it or use it last year, and then we even saw it on the Pixel 4, though some would criticize that Google is not quite using it to the same extent or like OnePlus has been able to, but it is available there. And you're seeing, hopefully, this may be the year where more and more manufacturers start at least looking at 90 hertz. So if 90 hertz offer a smooth experience, imagine what 120 hertz can do. And this would mean this. With 120 refresh rate, that overall smoothness that you're going to feel, you also got to take into account the possible battery life. And people are saying that they ain't going to have a big battery in it, so it's going to be able to handle that. Could Samsung yet again kind of light this year on fire? And I'm going to talk about something about that I'm kind of concerned about with all the things they bring out there, because the next thing I had on my list was talking about the Galaxy S10 Lite, and now that's official. That's going to come with Android 10 out of the box, which is a good thing. And as far as the Note 10 Lite and S10 Lite, it's going to have a 6.7-inch full HD display, 32 megapixel camera. It will have a 45 milliamp hour battery, 128 gigabytes of storage, 6 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes of RAM. And it should have One UI 2.0. So if they were able to price this just right, which this would sound like what they are going to do, that it's going to be a phone that's going to be priced at a price that's going to be able to get people who didn't want to spend that kind of money on the bigger brothers jumping on this. And now when you look at the internals on this is going to be something that kind of lends to kind of figure out what they're going to do. So and I'm getting all this from 9to5 Google, by the way, and I should have started out giving them credit for posting their article, but the Note 10 Lite looks like we'll have 3 12 megapixel cameras. The S10 Lite, or S10 Lite as they may be called it, will have a 64 octa-core processor. I think they both will have that. They both will have a Snapdragon 855, so that basically is last year's processor, which is not bad. 855 is still a decent processor to keep in a phone, especially on this magnitude. And they should be having this thing ready to show off at CES. And this is going to be on the heels of this push for more manufacturers to put out a decent mid-tier phone. Now, will this be available for the American customers? Because when I first saw this article, or saw articles about this subject, and seeing these phones out there, I was kind of thinking this phone is going to be more built or designed for like the Chinese market, or some of these markets that's not quite want to spend this type of money for the high-end phone market, that this will be geared more to them. But now that we're kind of seeing more of these mid-tier phones kind of having more of a presence here in the States, which I hope could see this here in the States, and I hope we do, because this may be something I might pick up. This is something that, even though I say I've not been a fan of Samsung phone because of their UI, this may be something that's may lend to something that I may be excited to at least look into. And for those who are like, I'm tired of these phones that are 1,500 plus, I want something that is going to be okay, that, have nice specs. I'm okay with being willing to give up somewhere, whether it be, I don't have to have all glass hardware. I can have a little plastic there. I'm willing to drop a little bit in a processor. The screen don't have to be the greatest and newest tech, as long as it's somewhere in the ballpark and it's allowing me to still enjoy my phone. This may very well be what will be something that most of your average customers are going to be willing to jump on board, especially if it's priced right. And Samsung, man, I'm telling you, one of the things I continue to love about Samsung is they continue to just excite the crowd, excite people. Because, the other thing I had on my list to talk about was that they were going to have the Samsung Galaxy Fold 2. And just the simple fact that the Fold 2 is going to have a design that is very similar to the Razr. And one of the things I even talked about on my website and in one of the articles I wrote last week is something that is very reminiscent of a time back when the Note 2 came on the scene. Because Motorola was the big dog for a long time in the Android ecosystem. It was pretty much Motorola who was dominant. Now, HTC had a big presence as well, but as far as in the States, Motorola was the top dog. We kind of saw them as the king of Android. After they came out on the scene with the Motorola Droid, and then they came with the Droid X, they were pretty much the manufacturer to beat. Like I said, HTC wasn't that far from them, and HTC kind of had a lot more of a presence in more countries and for more carriers, but Motorola was pretty much the manufacturer that a lot of companies were looking to, well, not going to say a lot of companies, but a lot of people really relied on. And this was mainly in part due to, one, they had some good radios, and it's the build quality. People just love Motorola phones and their build and all that stuff. So keep that in mind, that Samsung had just fell on their face as far as what a lot of us are concerned when they came out with the Samsung, well, it was a Droid Charge, and that had some poor radios. And then you have the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, the phone that a lot of us Google fans were waiting. Verizon's first Nexus, at least I did, was there on opening day, couldn't wait to get in our hands, get it home, and start using it. And when it had these issues with LTE and radios, man, you basically had a lot of people saying, see, that's why Motorola is still king, because at the end of the day, they still have the best radios. And, people couldn't argue with that. So, people was kind of waiting for the Droid Charge. It's like, all right, we saw the Droid Charge, but I mean the Droid Razr. We saw Motorola put out the Android Razr or a Razr a year before, and it was a nice design. It had that little thin bezel, and there was talk that they want to bring another version that year, and it's going to have more Kevlar, have a bigger battery. I particularly was waiting for the Droid Razr Max, and I'm like, because I want that Kevlar design, that extra battery life. I was all aboard. I couldn't wait for it. And you had that heart of the summer or that period in the summertime where it was dead. No one was releasing anything, and people saying, now is the time you want to drop it. Drop this phone. I will buy it right now. I'm ready. Verizon, Motorola, I got my money in hand. I'm ready to buy the thing. Put it out. Let's go. Come on. We in the forums talking about it. We're excited. We're all salivating over this phone. This is what we want. We knew what's coming. It wasn't a surprise. It's like, go ahead and drop it now. What are you waiting for? There's no reason to continue on holding it off. And they kept waiting. They kept waiting. They kept waiting. And mind you, Samsung had just put out the Galaxy S3. People are loving that phone. They're raving about it. The Note 1, even though it's had some issues and people wasn't quite ready to jump on fabrics yet, it had some buzz. And there was rumor that there's a possibility they could put a Note 2, but not a lot of people had that in their horizon. A lot of us fans were still on the Droid wagon or Droid bandwagon, and they kept waiting and they kept waiting. And next thing you know, Samsung dropped the Note 2. It had a quad-core processor. This thing had twice the RAM, twice the space as the Motorola Droid or the Droid Razr Max. And that was it. That right there for me was the changing of the guard. At that point, Samsung had just pretty much took over. They became the big dogs and took the reins from Motorola, and they haven't looked back. And I look at it now. A lot of people was kind of excited that we got this folding phone out. Samsung kind of, I guess they fell on their face, but they kind of had to take a step back. The first Galaxy Fold, it got the buzz a little bit, but it had a lot of bad publicity. It was fragile. It had a bad screen, and people like, all right, you tried, but it's not ready yet. And here it is. It looked like Motorola had figured out something that Samsung didn't. They could very well be the first to have a folding phone that is worth buying, and they had the chance to put it out pretty much before the year ended. It was ready to go. People were waiting. Drop it. Let's go. What are you waiting for? Let's check it out. Even though it had the specs that may not be on par as far as being a flagship level, especially for the price, it could have commanded some numbers just because of the name of the device alone. It was giving homage to the Motorola Razr back in the day. It had the flip design. People were excited. I saw it. I was excited. I was even possibly looking at, I may have to pick it up, even if it's for holding temporarily. I may have to look at this thing. And something happened. I don't know why they delayed it, but they delayed it. And now it looks like Samsung is geared up ready to put another fold out there. And guess what? It looks almost like the Motorola Razr, where it flips down just like the Motorola Razr. And unlike the Motorola Razr, which is going to be exclusive to Verizon, this one is more likely going to be open to more carriers, which means more people are going to be able to buy it. So now where Motorola had that Razr and could have a couple months of being in the spotlight, they're going to be overshadowed yet again by Samsung. And this is why Samsung continues to dominate the industry, because again, it's like they're hitting you from the left, hitting you from the right, hitting you here. I mean, it's like they're trying to give you something for everybody. Those who want bleeding edge tech, here you go. We got it. We got you here. Those that are a fan of the Note line, we got you there. Those that are fans of the regular Galaxy phone, we got you here. Those that may feel, okay, you know what, that's too much money, we got you in this landscape. They're literally innovating and providing something for everybody. And I gotta admit, they're one of my favorite phone manufacturers to date because of that. Now, this do bring up a question that honestly need to be brought up, and people have talked about this before. Is Samsung killing themselves or really hurting themselves releasing all these phones? Because at the end of the day, and I think this is one of the things that Motorola realized, once they started this flagship war, that, if everyone's putting out a flagship phone, and it costs a lot of money to put out a flagship phone. That's why it costs so much. If you want bleeding edge innovation, it's going to cost you money. And as much as we say we don't want to see these $1,000 phones, we can't have bleeding edge innovation and not expect these manufacturers to charge the type of money they're going to charge, because they ended to make a profit. And you can't make a profit unless you charge kind of what they're charging. But when you start putting out so many phones, because again, the way you make a profit is you got to make money. People got to buy the stuff. I feel like you're kind of cannibalizing yourself. And people have said that, because when you look at the phones they have out there, a lot of these phones, they kind of fit in the same area. A good example of that, you look at the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, it's in the same area of the Note phone. Those that want big phones are going to, at the time was gravitating to the Note. Now that you got the S10 Plus, or the Plus version of the Galaxy phones, now it's like, all right, I don't quite need to spend that type of money for a Note when I can get a Plus phone. And this was evident when they put out the Note 10 last year, because they wanted to put out a Note 10 Plus for those who want the, top end manual or hardware for the Note line, but also have a cheaper version for those that want a Note but don't want to quite spend that type of money. And that makes sense. But when you look at the specs for the Note 10, people are like, man, for what you're paying for it, you'd be better off just ditching the S Pen and picking up the S10 Plus. You'll get a much better phone, and it's cheaper. And it makes sense, because by now, the S10 Plus been out for over 4 or 5 months now, and you could probably pick one up for a sweetheart deal, especially if you look at the right place. So this is one of those things where it's like Samsung is kind of killing themselves, putting out so many phones, especially in the same area. And you look at what they're about to put out this year, potentially. You got a 40 phone we know is going to come out there. The Galaxy S10, or it's a Galaxy S11, or they may call it 20, but for now I'm going to call it the 11. Galaxy S10 11, Galaxy S10 11 Max or Plus, the Galaxy S10, or I keep wanting to call it 10, Galaxy S11e, which may be their cheaper version. That's 3 phones right there. The Folding 2, or Samsung Galaxy Fold 2, that would be 4. Looks like now we're going to have a Note 10 Lite, so that's 5. S10 Lite, which again, I don't get how the S10 Lite is any different from the S10e, but whatever, that's 6, and then you still got your Note phones they're going to put out there, but you don't know how many Note phones they're going to put out there. So they could potentially put out 8 phones plus, because I forget, they also have their S10A or A10 model phones or A50 phones. So they have so many phones kind of floating out there. It's like, how can they expect to make a profit in this? Now, some may say that, well, you can kind of limit your inventory, instead of making 1,000 phones, you cut down the number of phones you put in and offer more variety. And that could very well be the route they're choosing, say, okay, look, we looked at the numbers over the years, and it seems like when it comes to, especially a lot of us tech fans out there, is everybody want to jump on the hotness. So, everybody get excited about what is new and they want to jump on the latest and greatest. So instead of going out there and making, let's say, 5 billion Note 10s, let's go ahead and cut that to, a quarter of that. How many did we sell last year? And just put out that plus a couple extras to accommodate for any issues that we have where you may have to deal with warranty problems. And that may be very well be the case for all that phone, where we figured out the market enough to where we can go ahead and determine exactly how many we need to make so we can make a profit and not even make any more. And we can they may feel that they can make more of a profit by having variety than having numbers. Now, to me, that's still kind of feel like that's not going to work. But who am I to tell them? Because they have the people in place that look into all this. They have, the people who study the numbers, that study all kinds of things. And we'll just have to see how that works. Either way, I'm not going to lie, I'm excited to see kind of what goes here and see where this go with it. Even though, for a lot of us, we're like, why are you still releasing 2 more Galaxy S devices? Because you have enough S10s and you have enough Note phones. But hey, they study the market. They have a kind of an idea where they want to go with that. Speaking of talking about, phones and cheap phones and all that stuff, I want to talk about the Pixel 4a, because it looks like Google is going to be releasing a Pixel 4a. And, from early concepts right now, it's looked like this phone could very well be better than the Pixel 4 XL and the Pixel 4. Particularly the Pixel 4. It's going to have a better battery life, it looks like. It's going to get rid of the chin and possibly have more of a glass display, have a hole punch display instead. I said they have a fingerprint sensor, and you're going to have a headphone jack. And this is something I got to just really talk about real quick. Not so much just the phone, but just the idea of again, what is going on in Google world? Because it doesn't make sense to me. If they yet again put out a phone where their mid-tier phone end up being potentially more sought out than their flagship, people are then going to ask the question, why am I spending any money on my flagship or your flagship phones? Because it looks like the Pixel 4a could very well just be the better phone to buy. It's like all the things that people were complaining about in your flagship phones, you're seen to be addressing it in A phones. With this session, obviously, instead of having a glass display glass back, you're going a little bit plastic. Instead of having the latest processor, you're obviously going with a smaller processor. Another thing that they're sacrificing will be the camera. I'm pretty sure it's not going to have 90 hertz refresh rate or motion sense. But when you look at the motion sense, a lot of people are not using it to its full extent. And as far as the 90 hertz refresh rate, well, people have talked about that. So where it may seem like it's a sacrifice, it may not be, especially if you want to get better battery life and it's going to equate to better overall usage. It looks like when it comes to the dual cameras, you're not really getting what you wanted out of it anyway. In fact, I feel like they probably been better off still staying with a single camera if they wasn't quite ready to go all out like everyone else. But this is kind of something where I have to say this because I was writing this article and it kind of speaks to this because I said, okay, what are the phones I'm looking forward to this year and what are the phones I'm not? And the phone that I wasn't looking forward to is the next Pixel because I felt like when it comes to their flagship, I just gave up on Google. And this is one of the reasons why, because it's like, why should I as a consumer continue to invest in Google phones, especially their flagship phones? What am I getting out of it? I mean, I just got done talking about what Samsung is about to do, even though that we can criticize and argue with the fact that they're putting out all these phones and cannibalizing the market and really flooding it to the point where the resale value of their phones is definitely going to drop. They're at least trying to put something out there. Even though we don't have Huawei phones here in the States really, and they don't have Google support like they should, Huawei is doing something. Xiaomi is doing something. OnePlus, man, they just put out literally a few hours ago, showing what they about to show off at CES. All these manufacturers doing something that is exciting for the smartphone landscape, and not one person feels like, well, when it comes to Google Pixel phones, it is something exciting to talk about. In fact, one of the I was just talking about on Discord, and every time I was on an Android Discord, we were talking about the Pixel phones. Every time the Pixel came up, I couldn't think about anything positive to say. I was just kind of bitter when it came to the Pixel phones because for me, I invested many years in Google's hardware, and I felt like when it comes to the Pixel phone, it has continued to be the most disappointing phone for years. And I feel the same way right now with the Pixel 5. I've gave up on made by Google's hardware because as far as I'm concerned, I feel like they gave up on us a long time ago. When they first decided to come up with the Pixel, I feel like they gave up on us. If they really was concerned about giving us the hardware that we wanted, they would actually be really trying to look at what the market is doing, because people are buying what the market is doing. They're actually demanding the market continue to innovate. And it's why we continue, at least for me, find myself inspired and enjoy Samsung for being innovative, because at least they're trying. Apple is even trying and doing much better. And when it comes to getting excited for phones coming out there, I feel like that at the end of the day, Google just have given up, or they just don't have a clue what they're doing. Now, I find it hard to believe they don't have a clue what they're doing. They're not stupid. At least I hope not. But at times they do feel like they are. It's like, what are you doing over there? And whoever's the head of their phone division, I'm never wishing for anybody to be fired, but maybe it's time to go ahead and show that person the door, because it's like, it's quite obvious. When you see all these other manufacturers able to put something out there to make, people excited for it, and you look at what they're doing, again, it's the reason why I'm not excited for the phones. Now, again, the things I am looking forward to and can't wait to see, number one is Samsung. Every year Samsung continues to do the thing that we hope for. They inspire the market. They pretty much change the landscape, and they started really before the Note line. But since the Note line, you could argue Samsung has continued to inspire, to change, and almost in a way dictate when the market go with smartphones. And again, even though I'm not picking up their phones or gravitate their phone because of their software, I do love their innovation. And the only thing that's really keeping me from really selling out for them on their phone, and it's just, I don't like their software. I don't like how slow they are to update compared to Pixel phones. And that's the only thing that Google have for them right now, is that they're quick to update their software. They're quick to pretty much support their software. And that's, something that someone who is about that life is going to gravitate to. And I kind of wish we could see more manufacturers do that. The other phone, I guess I'm kind of, looking forward to, OnePlus phones. And ever since the OnePlus 6T, I've been in love with OnePlus. Like I said, I picked up the 7 Pro last year and can't stop talking about it. It's one of the, for me, my single regret of last year is that I got rid of that phone and to pick up the Pixel 4 XL. I felt like that was not an even trade. That was a step down for me. And if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't do that. And this year, I'm looking forward to what OnePlus put out, especially if they do another Pro phone. And if they drop another Pro phone, if they continue to innovate, they continue to excite, man, I'm feeling them. I'm feeling what they're doing over there. And I'm excited for OnePlus phones. And I never thought I would say that. I never thought I would say that I would be more excited for a OnePlus phone than a Pixel phone. For me, who have been a Pixel fan, Team Pixel, I may have to say I may be dropping the Team Pixel model and trading over to be Team OnePlus, at least for now, until Team Pixel can get this stuff together. Another company I'm kind of interested about is Apple. I'm kind of curious to see what other integration Apple put into iOS this year, particularly new iPhone. So I'm actually want to see what will come out of that in 2020, as well as some of the other manufacturers that, may not have a presence here in the States that put out phones that, even though we don't get a chance to see it as much, play with it as much, it's out there, and kind of see what's out there and what could possibly make its way to the phones here in the States. And before I close out, I got to talk about HTC, because HTC may be done. And we knew about it. Since what? It's been a while since we talked about an HTC phone in the industry. What was the last phone that you could think for HTC that you was excited about? Just think about it. And there are a lot of phones out there. In fact, here are my list of my favorite HTC phones. My first one, the Nexus 1, for obvious reason. It was the phone that inspired Nexus phones, Pixel phones. And for me, it showed what Android phones could be. And for me, it was the last time, or one of the last times, Google actually went out with the intent of making a phone that was leading the market, to show the market what a Android phone could be. And this was it. It had its issues, it had its bugs, but it was an inspiring phone. And really, a lot of people, to this day, look at the Nexus 1 as that was a phone that really got them excited for what Android could be. Now, the problem with the Nexus 1, it just came out too soon. It was just ahead of its time, particularly everything about it. Not only the phone, but the way they went about selling the phone, where, instead of going to a carrier to buy the phone, you bought it from the manufacturer. And people wasn't ready for that. They wasn't ready to go buy a phone straight to the manufacturer and then get a SIM card from the carrier that you want to use, which at the time you could use on T-Mobile and AT&T, I believe. GSM carriers in here in the state. So because of that, they were just way ahead of themselves. And, and because of that, I know Google kind of felt slighted on that. They felt like, man, we took a big gamble, we swung, and man, it hurt. And it really feels like ever since then, Google kind of have been afraid to really just sell out like they did. And I guess it's kind of why, for me, I'm hesitant on Pixel phones, but because you kind of sense that, they haven't really put themselves out there like that ever since the Nexus 1. Where back in the day when you had the Nexus 1, they were the ones who were like innovating and kind of showing what you could do with Android. And now it's not them. And I guess that's my biggest issue with Pixel phone, because I expected the Pixel phones to kind of channel the Nexus 1 back in the day and be the phone that can really show what Android could really be. And it hasn't. They have left it to other manufacturers to do that. And that's just, it feels like when the Nexus 1 died, when the HTC Nexus 1 died, so have the heart of Google. And we haven't seen a Google phone really take the reins ever since the Nexus 1. Even for Google phones since the Nexus 1 that may have, that have commanded more numbers and more people buying it. It just haven't had that same feel like this is the best phone or best Android phone that you can buy on the market at this time, both in hardware and software. Because right now, hardware, you can point to every other place other than a Pixel. But software, as much as I complain about Google phones, that's the only thing that continues to stand out for them is the software department. The second favorite phone for me, or HTC ever made, was the Evo. And this is Evo / Thunderbolt, or Thunderbolt, whatever. Now, the Thunderbolt, I'll have to say, is the weaker of the phone because of the simple fact that when Verizon released it, it had so many bugs. The battery life was just horrible. And yeah, but HTC Evo, it was like the Droid, where for those who couldn't buy the Droid and they was on Sprint, that was the phone people picked up. That was the phone for people on Sprint. It was big, and yeah, it really gravitated or had people start going towards big phones. Not quite as big when you look at where we are now, and particularly post the Note 1 phone, but that was pretty much it. And, with that kickstand and, that all gray design, and it was a really nice phone. And a lot of people had the phone and loved that phone. It gave Sprint kind of a little bit of a boost right there before they finally just, really fell off after that. But people kind of gave Sprint a second chance, mainly because of Evo. I think the Evo honestly kind of helped, I can say save Sprint, but keep Sprint kind of being able to pay bills long enough to kind of stay alive, because they would just continue to struggle, with other carriers providing much better coverage, much better service. And there were a lot of people who had got burnt by Sprint and wasn't really wanting to give Sprint a second chance. And, that Evo kind of helped to keep them along. HTC Incredible, and it was renamed the Droid Incredible. Some of you may not be aware of the story of how this phone came to be, but, there was rumors that, after the Nexus 1, there was this demand for a lot of customers that really wanted the Nexus 1 to come to Verizon. And, after negotiations, they were not able to get it to kind of pan out. And the main reason why, because Verizon wanted to remain in complete control of the phone. Google did not want to give control of their Nexus phone to a carrier. As a result, the phone was built, it was ready to go, and it was rebranded as the HTC Incredible, aka now the Droid Incredible. And with the optical trackpad, that phone was an awesome looking phone. You can say people really loved and enjoyed that phone. And the reason for it is because of the simple fact that, it provided fans a good upgrade from the HTC, it was the HTC Droid Ares. That's what it was. HTC Droid Ares. With the Droid Ares, it competed with the Motorola Droid, but it couldn't really do much, and it had the same specs and it had the same hardware. For those that wanted hardware on par with the Motorola Droid, but wanted something more like an HTC design, that was the phone for them, and it had a good following and a good community around it. Next on my list, the HTC Resound. Now, this phone for me was one of those phones that it's is underappreciated. And I talked about this as being one of the most underappreciated phones of the decade, because that the HTC Resound was released the same year as the Galaxy Nexus and the Droid Razr. And where the Droid Razr was going to continue to command those on the Droid line just because of the advertisement, and Verizon going to obviously push their Droid phones out there. The Galaxy Nexus had the fan base for obvious reasons. Those of us who were a big fan of Android, and this was the first Nexus phone to come to Verizon. The HTC Resound came in right then. It didn't really get as much advertisement as that it could. In fact, the only time you really saw any ads leading up to the phone for it was right at Christmas, where they had that HTC Resound commercial with the dancing grandma. If you forgot about it, I actually have it on my website. You can check it out. But that phone right there, to me, was I would say the true successor to the HTC Incredible. And I would say one of the best HTC phones that you could buy at the time. It had the battery life. It was like if HTC could correct everything on the Thunderbolt, and that's what they did, you had a Resound. And that's what the Resound was. It was the Thunderbolt corrected. All the issues I had with Thunderbolt, with the reboot issues and the battery issues, was pretty much gone. Now, HTC always had a reputation with putting smaller batteries in their phones than they should have. And with this phone, I did end up, and a lot of people end up having to put a larger battery in, or extended battery pack. And because of that, it kind of have a bigger hump to it. But once you got around that, it was just fine. And then because of the ROM community, you was pretty much able to put this phone, or put a ROM on the phone, to make it look and feel just like the Galaxy Nexus. And with that, it's like, yeah, why would you want the Galaxy Nexus? And for a while, after me having several issues with my Galaxy Nexus, this is the phone I actually picked up. And I did end up going back to the Galaxy Nexus, not because the phone was better, but me being a fan of the Nexus phones, I wanted to make sure the Nexus phones continue to go on and not just seize in at the Galaxy Nexus. I kind of was foolishly supporting it, but yeah, the Resound was a phone that didn't get the credit it deserved, and that's why it's on the list. The HTC One phones, that mean not just the one, but the M7 one, the M8, and all that stuff. This was the phone that really kind of changed really changed the way we view phones now. Before that time, a lot of your phones were built of plastic. And HTC said, all right, we're going to do something different. We're going to actually give a design or a phone that was built of metal and glass. And, people like, yeah, this is a beautiful phone. In fact, you could say that was the last HTC phone that did better than the Samsung phone as far as sales. More people wanted to pick up that phone than the Samsung phone, because people was critical of Samsung using all the plastic in there. They're like, okay, this kind of feels cheap. Hey, here's HTC, they put the metal on it. It feel like something you want to hold. It feel like a phone that's well designed, is built to last. And it really shaped kind of the direction that we have now with phones. And, some may be critical that, okay, guys, you put way too much glass on it now. But yeah, more of these manufacturers going to the premium design. And this has kind of helped spawn that, because people gravitated and wanted that. And my honorable mention is the HTC Butterfly. I love the look and design of that phone. And for me, that kind of wraps up, the phones that I felt like are my favorite HTC phones. And, quietly brilliant, maybe quietly just fading away. And, it's the end of an era. I kind of hope they could find their footing and rebound, but, in a way, it don't seem like it's going to happen. And it's a matter of what's going to happen with HTC as far as them as a company. Now, you still have htc.com/US, is there, but, they're not putting out any phones, at least not any major releases that, is challenging the industry, that people are talking about or looking forward to. And they're getting leapfrogged by companies that, wasn't even in their horizon a decade ago. And when you think about where HTC was a decade ago, I mean, when I said Motorola was the king of Android, HTC was not that far off. Motorola may be the king of Android, but the king of smartphones was HTC. And who would imagine that in a decade they would go from the king of smartphones to pretty much dead? Wow. And, I know they haven't, quote, closed up shop yet, but at this point, they might as well. Last thing I would talk about before I close out, I talked about it earlier. It looks like OnePlus has put out a little something, a little teaser that they're going to release at CES. So pretty much they're talking about a phone. They call it OnePlus Concept One. You can see it at their website or their Twitter. And basically, it's going to be, quote, a visible camera and color shifting glass technology. Now, we'll get a chance to see that CES next week. And once we see it, I can't wait to look into it and talk about it. I may actually end up picking the phone up, obviously. I've kind of been a fan of OnePlus lately. And I talked about it earlier. So we'll see what actually come of it, and we'll go from there. But that's it, guys, as far as tech for today. And welcome to another year, another New Year's. I kind of look forward to seeing where we go in tech. Another year of the next up in Android and tech, and I'm excited for it. I'm also going to continue on my traditions like this got started with this year, or this month, I'm sorry. So, this year, I want to give something out every month. And this month, the thing I'm actually going to give out will be Google Nest Mini and probably another gift card. So, the way I'm probably going to do it, I'm probably going to set up as like a question. And so be aware or look forward on my website where I may make the question, what phone feature would you sacrifice to keep a phone under $1,000? Whether it be hardware, as far as the camera you would give up for a inferior display, or you give up a glass back for a plastic back. What would you sacrifice? And and I should make it a two-part question. What would you sacrifice, and what would you not want to sacrifice to keep a phone under $1,000? So yeah, be looking for that, as I will have that question up on my website, and just enter for a chance to win. And like normal, if you enter my contest, I will not be spamming you, and just enter. And I'm kind of curious to read what you guys choose as your answer. Other than that, that's all I have for today, and I look forward to CES next week and going from there. That's all I got. I'm out. It's back. The sports part, I said we'll have it coming back, and I started this a couple shows ago where basically after the music is over, after all of it's done, I go to a more relaxed style. I'm not talking tech. And I'm more talking about what's trending, mainly in sports and whatever. When I first started neXup, one of the reasons I actually started my website was for two reasons. One, I wanted a place to be able to have freedom to talk about tech. But the other reason was because I wanted to have the freedom to talk about almost anything, because I am someone, even though I'm a big fan of tech, I have other interests as well, particularly sports. I do love these comic book movies and these TV shows and all that. And I wanted a place to have that freedom to display that. Where when I was on a forum that was dedicated to talking about Android smartphones, I couldn't bring up stuff like the iPhone or bring up stuff like movies and stuff. Well, I could, but it was out of place because that forum was pretty much dedicated to talking about Android phones. So to bring all this other stuff up would kind of just be out of place. I wanted the freedom to have that, to be able to talk about that, even though that would be considered off-topic stuff. And that's what kind of was the heart of the neXup. And even though I know when it comes to stuff like YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that, if you kind of look up the trends, you ask people that tell you what you need to kind of keep your subject to one area. Don't be all over the place. You can lose your people or the customers or those that came to listen to you for a certain reason. So keep it to that. And for the most part, I'm doing that. I'm following, I can say the trends, but the suggestions that people have, that I am going to just stick to the subject matter at hand. But I also want to be able to keep to the heart of what actually caused me to start this. And that was me being able to have the freedom to talk about things like sports and all that. And that's pretty much why I'm still going to do that. But to be fair, I'm going to wait till like now, after the closing song, when it gets quiet, those who want to talk tech, they can sign off and go about their day. And those that want to continue on and hear me talk about sports, stick around just a little bit longer as I do that. So let's start with my 49ers. Whoo, buddy. Dog. I do not want to play the Seahawks again. And matter of fact, right now this week, I'm a big Eagles fan. My mother is an Eagles fan for real, but I'm going to be cheering and wearing green and white this week because I need the Eagles to beat the Seahawks, because I do not want to see the Seahawks again this year. And that again proves why, I think Russell Wilson continues to be, if not the top choice for MVP, he's right there in the conversation, because he is single-handedly the reason why their team is in the playoffs, why they pretty much about beat us, where, people may say, there was a controversial play at the end where, people say he crossed the line and, we didn't stop him short. I think we stopped him short. And the other controversial play in that drive was the pass interference that wasn't called. I don't think it was pass interference because the receiver actually went and pushed off on a defender. And, I think that's a good no call, but I can understand someone on the opposite side saying, hold up, that deserved a call, deserved a flag. And obviously, I think if they would have got that flag, they would have scored, they would have won, and the game would have been over. And yeah, we survived, and I'm glad we survived. We needed to survive. We needed that it wasn't so much just home field advantage, even though it's good to have. We needed that bye week. We were banged up. We didn't have a bye week since week 4. We were depleted. We had a tough schedule that we survived. And yeah, we needed that bye week. We needed to get our guys healthy, and it could come at a better time. But I'm telling you, I do not want to see the Seahawks again, and that could very well happen, because if the Saints beat the Vikings, which more likely can happen, they're going to end up playing Green Bay. And if Seattle beats Philly, they're coming to San Francisco. And just because it's in San Francisco, that don't mean where they're going to be the favorite, because yes, both times we played each other, it came down to last place scenario, and both times Seattle, gosh, man, I don't want to play them again. I'm just saying right now. So Yeah, as far as the playoffs, how it's looking, you got the Titans going to play the Patriots, and that's going to be an interesting game because, you got Mike Vrabel. Last year, they actually beat the Patriots. Here it is. Normally the Patriots have home field advantage or at least have the first round bye. For them to be going on the road and actually playing in a wild card game, a lot of people are like, wow, this is, I'm sorry if we're going on the road, but actually playing at home, but actually going out and being in a wild card game, people are like, yeah, this is a weaker Patriots team this year, and they are obviously beatable. But, even though experts are kind of picking the Titans, I'm actually looking at the Patriots going to end up winning this. And the main reason because of that is because this is the second time Bill Belichick has played the Titans. And normally when Belichick have a second chance to play a team, he is much better. He had the time to kind of study that team better. And even though the Titans have a better running game, the Titans can pretty much, I think, wear out the Patriots and end up still in this one. I'm actually saying the Patriots coming out on top on this one. The next wild card game you have, the Bills playing the Texans. And I can see this being an upset. I can see the Bills actually upset the Texans here. The Bills actually have a team that has, compared to the latter years, they got a running game, and they can very well make this an upset right here. Then you got the Vikings playing the Saints. Yeah, I see the Saints winning that one easily. In fact, I say the Saints are one of the favorites to take it all away, if not great. I say the Saints. They're probably the favorite to take it all away. I'm not looking forward. I don't want to have to play them again either, but they're the team to beat as well. Seattle and Philly, like I said, I see Seattle winning this, but I really want Philly to win. I'm actually rooting for Philly here. Coach Garrett was fired, and I don't think there's any surprise there. For the Cowboys, it's just a matter of now who they're going to pick up and who they're going to be who they're going to replace them with, and who's going to be willing to work with Jerry Jones. Because again, some people see Jerry Jones as someone who's a hands-on owner, and some people may feel that kind of meddling and getting in the way, and that may be a problem for a lot of people. But it'd be interesting to see where we go with that one. And then the last thing we're going to actually have to talk about, the championship game that's going to happen Monday between, you got LSU playing Clemson. LSU just been playing real good all year long. They got a solid offense, solid defense. They're obviously the favorite, but Clemson's been there before. They've been underdogs in a lot of these bowl games. They found a way to come out and win. Even though people have wrote them off because of the lesser schedule, but they've been here before. And even though they're definitely, not expected to win this, they could very well come in and do such a thing. And I'm thinking this may end up being a good game. If I had to choose, I'm going to take LSU for it, even though I think Clemson can come out and actually surprise them. So that's pretty much all I have for as far as what's going on with sports. Don't have too much left to talk about. Finally, this for real is the end. That's all I have to say. You guys have a very good week, a very good start of the year. I hope whatever resolutions, whatever you wrote down that you want to use to kind of do better, hey, stick with it. And, I actually heard this today, and I'm actually going to share this. I guess this would be my quote thought of the day. I haven't really done one in a couple of weeks, and I may have to do this. Now, to be fair, I actually heard someone else say this, but the thought of the day, a comfort zone is a great place, but nothing will ever grow there. So think about that. For those of you out there, you got some goals and you got some plans, and, write them down. And, whether it be to lose weight or to get on a budget, to, be better at this, whatever it is, just understand that in order to get better, you can't always expect to be comfortable. It's not going to always be easy. In fact, the best way to grow is to be uncomfortable. And that holds true in a lot of areas, especially if you're trying to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever physical goals you have. You got to be in that area of getting out of your comfort zone. And honestly, that holds true for me as well. Getting out of my comfort zone, and that's the only way we can truly grow. Well, that's all I have for you. Have a good week. And for real this time, I'm out.